Hello, welcome students. Myself Mir Firasat Ali. I am Assistant Professor in Department of Civil Engineering. First of all, I welcome all of you to third year, first semester. So, in this semester, I will be teaching you hydraulic engineering. So, let us see what all revolves around this hydraulic engineering. See, now we are in third year, we are almost moved to the technicality of civil engineering. Now we will be mostly in this our third year, will be mostly concerning about the technical subjects of our civil engineering. So this is one of them, hydraulic engineering. So any of the technical subject, to learn the technical subject, first we need to have some basics. So the basics for this subject, hydraulic engineering, we are getting it from fluid mechanics. So the prerequisite of this subject, hydraulic engineering, is nothing but a fluid mechanics, which we have already learned in our previous semester. So the fundamentals which we want in this hydraulic engineering, will be obtaining it from fluid mechanics. For the learning of this subject, hydraulic engineering, we'll be referring to two books. The first is, as you can see on your screen, the first is nothing but Hydraulic and Fluid Mechanics by P.M. Modi and S.M. Seth. This is one book, and the other reference book is Fluid Mechanics and Hydraulic Machines by Dr. R.K. Bansal. So these two are the reference book which will be referring throughout the learning of this subject. Now let us see a quick introduction on our subject, hydraulic engineering. What is hydraulic engineering is all about? Generally, civil engineering broadly, as a major head, civil engineering is divided into several other sub branches or sub disciplines, you can say. It is nothing but structural. One of the sub discipline is structural engineering, other sub discipline is transportation engineering, as it goes on. So one among those is nothing but hydraulic engineering. So hydraulic engineering is a sub discipline of civil engineering, and mainly it is concerned with the flow and conveyance of fluid. Flow and conveyance, the meaning of conveyance is nothing but transporting. Suppose we need to transport the fluid from one place to another. Example, we can take it as a pipe. From our water tank, we need to transport the fluid to our required site. Maybe it is a kitchen or maybe it is a washroom. So what is happening over there? Conveyance is happening. When we talk it about larger scale, suppose we have constructed a dam. From dam we need to take that water to many remote areas. We take it through canals. So that transport of fluid is nothing but conveyance of fluid, principally water and sewage. And one feature of this system is the extensive use of gravity as a motive force to cause the movement of the fluid. The thing is that whenever we want to pump this, convey this fluid from ground, we are conveying it through motor to our tanks, and from tanks by the principle of gravity we are conveying it. So the main feature of this system is extensive use of gravity as the motive force cause the movement of the fluids. The area of this area of civil engineering, that is nothing but hydraulic engineering, is related. We use this hydraulic engineering in the design of bridges, dams, channels, canals and levees. Basically this the application of hydraulic engineering we can find in these areas. And hydraulic engineering is the application of principle of fluid mechanics to the problem dealing with the collection, storage, control, transport, regulation, measurement and use of water. So this was all about introduction to hydraulic engineering. Now let us see what are our course objectives and course outcomes. Basically, course objective, before getting deeper into an subject, first we need to know what are our course objective, why we are learning this course, and what are the outcomes after learning this course, what will be, how it will be useful. So those things are mandatory. So let us see course objective: to introduce the students to various hydraulic engineering problems in open channel flow. In couple of minutes we'll be knowing what is open channel flow and what is a closed channel flow. So basically, what are the problems associated? Suppose when you are conveying water through canals, what are the engineering problems that come across? So that is nothing but the first point: ability to understand energy loss principles, how the energy loss and energy gain happens; ability to relate the theory and practical problems in hydraulic engineering. These are nothing but our this is very mandatory. After knowing the subject, what we have to do is we have to gain an ability to relate the theory and practice problems. See, our civil engineering, our domain civil engineering is all about practical applications. So in the classroom we will be learning a theory and we need to apply it on the site. So this ability we have to create to relate the theory and practical problems in. And when we go for course outcomes are nothing but categorizing various types of flow. After completing this subject, you will be able to categorize different types of, if I show you the flow, you will be saying that this is so and so flow, this is so and so flow. So you can categorize the various types of flow. Solve various engineering problems in open channels. Engineering problems in the sense, the real time problems what we are facing for the conveyance of water, that problems we can solve it. Understand the hydraulic jump and its issues. When suddenly we let water go off, there is a jump in water, so there is a energy loss and energy gain principles. So you will be knowing about that. And next is understand the dimensional analysis. We'll talk about various boundaries through which this fluid is conveyed. Understand the dimensional analysis and apply the knowledge of fluid mechanics, addressing the problems in hydraulic machinery. So whenever the word conveyance comes, one type of transport of this fluid is by gravity. Okay, the another is nothing but we use huge hydraulic machineries. So we'll be talking about that also in this subject. Okay. So while dealing with course objective and course outcomes, we have come across the word called open channel flow. So there are basically two types: open channel flow and closed channel flow. So I'll show you difference between open channel flow and closed channel flow. Consider this as a pipe, which you can see on your screen, the first image. Consider it is a pipe or a duct. Here the water which is flowing is completely bounded. It is not exposed to atmosphere, or there are no free surface. The water whichever flowing in this image and this image, first and second image basically, which you can see on your screens, is nothing but here the conveyance of water is under closed conduct. No surface of the water is exposed to atmosphere. It is surrounded by, if we talk over here, it is surrounded by four sides. If we talk about here, it is surrounded by a circular section. There is no exposure of water to the atmosphere. So this type of flow is nothing but closed channel flow. We call it as closed channel flow. Now look at these images, image 3, image 4 and image 5. Here the water is bounded at three sides and we have left the surface, one surface of the water to the atmosphere. Okay, this type of flow is known as open channel flow. Figure 3, figure 4 and figure 5. Here the water is bounded by three sides. Here the water is completely bounded. So this two images is of closed channel flow and this remaining three images is of open channel flow. Now the next, this is all about introduction. Now let us go to our unit 1, which will talk about flow through pipes, and we will be seeing Reynolds experiment. So now let us go to our unit 1. The unit 1 talks about flow through pipes. In this unit we'll be
dealing with the fluid characteristics of the fluid which flow through the pipes. Okay, so as you know that pipes are commonly, what is a pipe? Generally a pipe is a closed conduit which is used for carrying fluids under pressure. Okay, pipes are commonly circular in section. As the pipes carry fluids under pressure, the pipe always run full, because it carry, whether it can be atmospheric pressure, the pressure which develops in pipes, either it can be a pressure due to gravity or pressure through pumps. Okay, as the pipes carry fluids under pressure, the pipe always run full, and the fluid flowing in a pipe is always subjected to resistance. Resistance is nothing but obstruction to flow. The fluid flowing in a pipe is always subjected to resistance due to shear forces. And from where these shear forces are arising? Shear forces are arising due to or between the fluid particles and the boundary walls of the pipes. While the water is flowing inside the pipe, okay, the shear force occurs or arises. The reason why those shear force arises is because the interaction between fluid particles and the boundary walls of the pipe, and between the fluid particles themselves. One is that the fluid whichever flowing in the pipe, it gets interacted, okay, it gets resistance by the inner surface of the pipe. And second is, among the fluid particles also there is some force present, resistance force occurs, so themselves resulting from the viscosity of the fluid. Viscosity is nothing but resistance to flow. Okay, so the resistance to flow of fluid is generally, we term the resistance to the flow of fluid is generally known as frictional resistance. Since certain amount of energy possessed by the flowing fluid will be consumed in overcoming the resistance to the flow, it is consumed as it is due to the boundary wall, inner surface, or between the fluid itself. Certain amount of energy possessed by a flowing fluid will be consumed in overcoming this resistance to the flow. There will be always some loss of energy in the direction of flow, which however depends on the type of flow, The flow of fluid in a pipe may be either laminar or turbulent. So to know in detail about what is this laminar and what is this turbulent flow, Reynolds have conducted an experiment. So let us see what Reynolds has done in its experiment, and how we are distinguishing a flow as laminar and turbulent.
Let us now see the Reynolds experiment and Reynolds number in detail. So let us first start with the Reynolds experiment. Osborne Reynolds famously studied the conditions in which the flow of fluid in pipes transition from laminar flow to turbulent flow. So the main purpose of this experiment is to study the behavior or study the transition of the flow from laminar to turbulent. In the year 1883, Reynolds described the transition from laminar to turbulent flow in a classic experiment in which he examined the behavior of water flow under different flow velocities using a small stream of dye water introduced into center of a clear water flow in a large pipe. The large pipe was glass, so the behavior of the layer of the dyed stream could be observed, and the end of this pipe there was a flow control valve used to vary the water velocity inside the tube. When the velocity was low, the dyed water remained distinct through the entire length of the large tube. when the velocity was increased, the layer broke up at a given points and diffused throughout the fluid cross section. The point at which this happened was a transition point from laminar to turbulent flow. So, now I will show you or I will describe you the apparatus which was used in this experiment. Basically, the apparatus is as simple which you can see on your screens. It consists of a tank filled with water. This is a tank, nothing but it is filled with water, and we have a small tube, or you can call it as a reservoir also. Okay, this tube or reservoir in which dye colored fluid, dye, the meaning of dye is nothing but dye, the dye is nothing but a color fluid. Water, as we know, the water is colorless. Similarly, dye is nothing but a colorful fluid, which you can see it is filled in this reservoir or container also you can say. Okay. Then another, this is nothing but a glass tube, this which you can see is nothing but a glass tube. We have two regulating valve, one is at the outlet of the glass. See, this is nothing but a valve which is used to regulate the flow of water, whether the flow is slow or medium or fast. It will be, if you open this valve completely, the flow will be very fast. If you open this valve partially, then if you open this partially, then the velocity will be slow. Okay. And one more valve at the inlet of the dye. See, we have two valves, one is outlet at the glass tube and another is at the inlet of dye. Based on this valve, how much amount of dye we have to inject, that we can see. This is nothing but one more valve. So, this is nothing but a setup of Reynolds experiment. This is nothing but a setup of Reynolds experiment. The procedure of the experiment is as follows. Fill the tank with water and leave it for some time, as the water in the tank should come to rest. The water in this tank should be filled, and what we need to do, and we have to leave it for some time, so that the water present in the tank should come to rest. Now, what we need to do is, we need to fill this reservoir. We need to fill this reservoir with a dye. Dye, as I have already mentioned, dye is nothing but a colored fluid. Generally, we use potassium permanganate solution, which is nothing but a colored fluid. The weight density of dye should be as same that of water. The main important point that one has to keep for the successful conduct of this experiment is nothing but the dye or the colored fluid which we are using should be as same weight density as that of water. If the dye which you are choosing is not as same density of or weight density of water, then this experiment does not stand successful. Okay. Here, why we are using potassium permanganate? The first of all, it is a red colored solution, so easily it can be distinguished in the plain water, and the other is the weight density is same as that of water. Now, we need to allow the flow through the glass tube at a very low rate by partially opening the outlet valve of a glass tube. See, here we have outlet valve of the glass tube. So, what we have to do, by operating this valve, okay, which you are seeing it over here, by operating this valve, allow the flow through the glass tube at a very low rate. Don't open it completely. First, we need to open it partially. Okay. Then when the flow is stable, in this pipe, in this glass tube, when you can notice that flow is stable, there are no bubbles at all, what we need to do is we need to open the inlet valve. This is nothing but inlet valve of dye. When you open this valve, what happened? Red color fluid get injected into this glass tube. So when the flow in this glass tube is stable, what we need to do is we need to open that valve, open the inlet valve of a dye injector and allow the colored fluid to flow through the glass tube. When we open this valve, what happens? This colored fluid get injected into this glass tube. The following observations has to be made. Check the formation or appearance of dye filament in the glass tube for different velocities and note down the flow type based on its appearance from below 3 cases. What we need to do? See, this is the valve. When we operate this valve, if we open this valve partially, the flow will be slow. When we open this valve completely, the flow will be, the velocity of this flow will be more. So what we need to do? The first thing, by operating this valve, okay, different cases are possible. The first case, if the dye filaments form straight line, then it is called laminar flow. On opening this valve partially, if this filament, which you can see on your screens, if it's form a straight line, then the existing flow through this glass tube is termed as laminar flow. Earlier we have talked about two flows, that is nothing but laminar flow and turbulent flow. Now we are introducing one more flow, that is nothing but transition flow. Transition flow is nothing but that the flow at which the laminar changes to turbulent. Transition, laminar flow changes to turbulence flow. It changes at a point, it is known as transition flow. So if this dye filament flows in slightly wavy manner, then it is said to be a transition flow. Again, the third possible case will be if the dye filament diffuses. If this filament no longer look like this, it get mixed, intermingled with water. If this get intermingled with water or diffuses over the entire cross section of the tube while passing, then it is called turbulent flow. Then it is called turbulent flow. I will show you the example of this filament dye at laminar, turbulent and transition, and also we will look at the real time experiment, how it looks. So if as discussed, if the dye is in straight line, then this flow, the flow which is going under this glass tube is nothing but a laminar flow. If that gives a wavy nature, then this flow is said to be a transition flow. And if it completely get diffuses or intermingle with the water, then this flow is said to be a transition flow. Straight line, laminar flow, wavy texture, transition. Transition flow generally it exists for a very shorter duration. Transition flow is nothing but when laminar flow changes to turbulent flow. In between there is a one phase, that phase is nothing but a transition. As name itself say, transition flow. And when it get completely diffuses, then it is nothing but a turbulent flow. The real time behavior of this Reynolds experiment can be demonstrated by this video. Now look at this video for the clear to get the clear picture of this Reynolds experiment.
Now see these are the arrows, these are moving at a very slow rate, stable rate. This arrow indicates the flow of water. Now the flow of water inside this glass tube is at a slow or steady rate, and you can see the die is also in a straight line. This die is also stable. So this type of flow is nothing but a laminar flow. If we increase the velocity of water, see now you are getting a wavy texture, and after that it is completely mixed with water. So this intermingling of dye with the water, this is nothing but a turbulent flow. This is nothing but a turbulent flow. Generally the flow, when the laminar flow changes to turbulent flow is nothing but at this sort of, when an enlarged pipe is reduced, when the pipe diameter is reduced, laminar flow is suddenly converted into turbulent flow. So this is where this Reynolds number is determined. This is for this type of applications, the Reynolds number is determined. Generally it is this transition from laminar to turbulent occurs at a Reynolds number of 23
Reynolds, after conducting the experiment, he has noticed that laminar and turbulent flow depends upon the magnitude of flow. These forces, laminar flow and turbulent flow depend upon the magnitude of inertial force and viscous forces. So when the velocity is low, in that scenario the viscous force gets predominant, and when the magnitude or the velocity of the flow is high, the inertial force get predominant. So the Reynolds, through his experiment, what he has invented a dimensional less parameters known as Reynolds number, so that by this Reynolds number the laminar flow and turbulent flow can be judged. Okay, so now let us see how to derive this, how this Reynolds number is derived and what are its significances. So as you can see on your screens that Reynolds number is nothing but inertial force by viscous force. Inertial force is nothing but it arises due to momentum of the water inside the pipe or inside the glass tube. The movement, due to that momentum, this inertial forces arises, and the viscous force is nothing but it is obstruction to the resistance. So now if we consider this equation as equation 1, we will consider this equation as equation 1. So we will derive this. Fi is nothing but viscous force, Fi is nothing but inertial forces. According to the second law of motion, Newton's second law of motion, force is nothing but it is a multiple of mass and acceleration. It is nothing but F is equal to m into a. Mass can be written as rho into volume and acceleration as it is. Okay. Now if we write the dimensional formulas for this, rho is a dimensionless number, whereas volume is nothing but L cube and acceleration is nothing but L by t square. Okay. So now let us convert this into some other, let us modify this. Rho into, instead of L cube I am writing it as L square, and I am taking that one more L to other side, L square by t square, and we know that L by t is a dimensional unit for velocity. L square by t square, and it is nothing but dimensional unit for velocity. Rho into L square into V, where V is nothing but L by T. This is nothing but equation 2. So now let us see, let us derive this viscous force Fv. It is nothing but shear stress tau into area. Okay, so this tau can be written as viscosity into gradient of velocity and time, velocity and distance into area can be written as L square. Okay, so mu into gradient of velocity and distance into L into L. Okay, for this L square I am writing it as L into L. So now this value becomes V, mu into V, velocity into L. This is nothing but our equation 3. So after substituting equation 2 and equation 3 in equation 1, the final Reynolds number which we get is Reynolds number is equal to rho VL by mu. Here the rho is nothing but the density of fluid, V is nothing but velocity of fluid, L is nothing but it is the characteristic length, and mu is nothing but dynamic viscosity of the fluid. In another terms, in terms of kinetic viscosity, we can write the formula as VL by nu. Generally, the kinetic viscosity is denoted or represented by a letter nu. So VL by nu, where V is velocity of fluid, L is characteristic length, nu is nothing but kinematic viscosity. Generally, mu by rho is nothing but kinematic viscosity. So in another terms also we can write this formula in terms of diameter. Instead of characteristic length, we can replace the characteristic length with diameter. Rho Vd by mu also represents Reynolds number. So this is it for this lecture 1 of unit 1. Thank you everyone for joining with me in this session. Please comment your full roll number in the comment box. Attendance will be calculated from the comment section. Thank you. Thank you once again.